welcome back to the ZOE Japan podcast. My name is Joey, and I'm your podcast host for today. Joining me is my colleague, Anna-Ree. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Joey. I'm so happy that we can have this conversation today.
Right, so am I. So today we're going to discuss something that our team has been working on here. We're seeing an increasing number of young Japanese women being exploited overseas. This topic is difficult, but I think it's one that we really need to pay a lot of attention to and just kind of take it head on. Can you maybe summarize what we're looking at here on the ground?
Absolutely. As you mentioned, there appears to be a growing trend of Japanese women, I would say age range maybe 18 to 25, 26, sometimes a little bit older, and they are being recruited by these online agents for work opportunities overseas. And in some cases, these women later find themselves in exploitative situations, and they actually become victims of sex trafficking. Many of them are aware that they are being recruited for work in the sex industry, but they're usually not aware of the kind of risks and dangers that they will encounter. And these risks can include debt bondage and coercion, physical violence, sexual violence, threats, intimidation, even restrictions of movement. I remember one case that we heard about where there was forced or coerced drug and substance use as well. So it really is very dangerous for them.
Wow. Okay. So as a victim advocate, I think that our starting point for this conversation needs to be us saying that we need to not jump to conclusions when we're talking about these situations. We don't want to begin with victim blaming or reduce people to statistics or headlines. The women that we encounter through our outreach, usually they're carrying incredibly complex life stories. They did not begin here. Right? It was a journey that got them to this point in their lives. And a lot of these women are late teens or early 20s. And some have experienced childhood abuse, neglect, family dysfunction, domestic violence. There's a lot of different kinds of trauma that can kind of prime women to be in a situation like this. Some of them are just struggling financially and they're trying to support themselves. So when people ask, why would somebody make that choice? I think that's the wrong question. I think the question that we should be asking is what happened in their life to make them believe that this was a viable opportunity for them.
Oh, that is so valuable. 100% agree with you. Many of the women that are being targeted, they're not there to make reckless decisions. They're not trying to ruin their lives. They're trying to solve real problems. Some are trying to pay the rent. Many are trying to escape debt. So that could be incurred by emotional manipulation, by someone that they believe really, honestly and truly that is their romantic partner, which very often then becomes their trafficker. Many are trying to gain independence. We see so many that are just looking for a place where they can belong. And then, of course, there are single mothers as well. So some single mothers are really struggling to make ends meet, and this is a way that they can just support their family. And unfortunately, there are individuals and there are criminal groups that know exactly how to identify these vulnerabilities and how to exploit them.
Right. So one of the things that we've been particularly concerned about is the intersection between financial vulnerability and debt. Many listeners may have heard of host clubs, but may not understand the role that debt can play in a trafficking scenario.
I love that you mentioned host clubs. I think we need to pause here for a moment because host clubs is a very Japanese thing. It's something that we know about. In some other countries, you have host clubs as well, but I think it would be really helpful for our listeners if you can just explain what a host is in the Japan context.
I'm so glad you asked. Let me just dive in there. Okay, so hosts are typically young men who are employed by a club, and their role is to provide companionship and entertainment to female customers. They usually engage in attentive conversation. They're very flirtatious. They offer emotional support. They are trying to create an experience that makes customers feel valued and special. Within the host club system, customers may compete for their host's attention, and the way to do that is by spending more money on the host. So they'll go in and they'll purchase drinks, services, or other club offerings on behalf of that host. And all of those purchases go to the host and to increase his ranking within the club system itself. So there are strong financial incentives for hosts to cultivate and maintain these relationships. I've even heard of hosts regularly scheduling messages to go out to their female clientele where they're every day. Hey, how are you doing? I'm thinking of you. I hope to see you later. And this creates the illusion of a quasi-relationship, and it keeps the woman on the hook so that she continues to invest in that relationship with the host.
think that's an excellent explanation. And in addition to these host clubs, we are seeing something new that is really bubbling more to the surface. It's always been there, but it's the concept of chika idols.
Okay.
And I think a lot of us know what an idol is. You know, it's a performer that wants to rise to the top and become super famous, singing and dancing. So these idols do the same, but with the chika idols, they have not yet made it.
Okay. So can I just jump in here?
Yeah.
What is, well, like the name chika idol? What is that signifying? Like, what does the word chika mean?
An underground idol.
Okay.
It doesn't mean hidden, though. It doesn't mean that they are doing something in secret or physically underground. They might be, but no. So it's more that they haven't made it yet.
Okay.
That's really what it means.
Okay.
So they're very dependent on fan spending, which means that they use a lot of emotional manipulation, and they want to have gift sales or ticket sales, and they actually charge for personal interaction. So you can go to your chika idol and take a photo with them or shake their hand, and you have to pay for every single one of those interactions.
Oh, okay.
And I just want to emphasize that we are not saying that every single host club or all the chika idols are traffickers and that they're exploiting women. But what we are observing are that there are many cases related to these industries where the women accumulate significant debt. And in these situations, these overseas opportunities that just promise very high earnings, that can become really, really attractive for these girls.
So if I understand this, I think that the attraction for the chika idols might be that these young men are more approachable than the hosts.
And more affordable.
And more affordable.
Yes.
Okay. So it's both. It's like an approachability as well as it's a less of a financial burden. That's interesting. Okay. Now, from the conversations I've had with women, what often strikes me is that many women do not necessarily see themselves as trafficking victims. As you said earlier, they might fully understand that they will be working in the adult industry or sex industry. And the problem is not that they're unaware of the nature of the work. I think that what they're unaware of are the people behind the scenes who are pulling the strings. They believe that they're working for one person. They leave the country. And then once they're in this foreign land, they find out that they may actually be working for an entire network.
Yeah.
And that whole network is involved and benefiting from their exploitation.
That is such an important distinction. You know, a person may consent to travel, or they may consent to a certain type of work, including sex work. But nobody consents to exploitation. Nobody consents to coercion. Nobody consents to having their vulnerabilities used against them. And what we see in some cases is that these women enter these situations expecting one thing, and then later discover that they have completely lost control. They are no longer in control of the situation. This is not what they signed up for.
Right. Now, I've spoken with some women who believed that they were entering a business arrangement, and traveling abroad seems quite glamorous, right?
Absolutely.
So they view themselves as like international business women, but then they find themselves under intense financial pressure once they arrive in that foreign country. And there are these debts that they did not see coming. There's unexpected fees, there's accommodation costs, transportation costs, recruitment costs, penalties, deductions that are unexplained. They're just, you owe this money. So the financial burden can quickly become overwhelming for these young women.
And what you're explaining there is the debt bondage. And debt bondage is a significant factor that we look for when we look at trafficking. Right. And in a situation where someone is in debt bondage, they feel trapped by that financial obligation. And it feels impossible to repay, or really, really difficult to repay. And sometimes the debt existed before the travel. So maybe they already incurred that through their interactions with a host club or a chika idol or any other form of interaction that required them to pay money in advance. But sometimes it grows after the travel. So just as you said, once they arrive in that country, suddenly there's this list of things that they have to pay for that they didn't even know about. And the result is the same. The person feels that they cannot leave. And even if there are no physical restraints, they truly and honestly believe that they have no realistic alternatives, especially if they cannot speak English.
Right. So what we're really talking about here is coercion then, right? And I think that coercion can look like a lot of different things. People often imagine physical force, being thrown in a trunk or chained to a radiator. But coercion, exactly. Coercion is not just physical. It's usually not physical. A lot of times it's psychological, it's emotional, it's financial, or it's relational. And the people that are betraying these young women are the very people that they trust in their lives. And a woman may be told, you owe us money. You can't leave until this debt is paid. We know where your family's at. A lot of times in a foreign country, they feel absolutely isolated and they have no alternatives. So, there's this nobody will believe you or you don't have anywhere else to go. So those messages can become incredibly powerful, especially if the woman has already been isolated.
Fully agree. They're so vulnerable. They may be struggling with past trauma, carrying deep emotional wounds, and it probably existed long before this form of exploitation began. And the traffickers and the exploiters are so skilled at identifying those wounds and just using them to gain influence and control over these women.
So I'd like to just shift gears here a little bit. I want to talk about a broader pattern that we're seeing here. Without going into any operational details, our team has observed a growing number of online ads promoting overseas opportunities. A lot of the concern here centers around destinations like the United States or Canada, but I'm sure that those are not the only two locations that we're talking about.
And you're right. We've observed ads and discussions promoting opportunities definitely in the United States, definitely Canada, but also Australia, South Korea, Singapore, even some European destinations, which is quite interesting. That has started to surface now. And let's be very clear, these countries in themselves are not the issue.
Right.
Millions of people travel to them very safely every year. In fact, one of the biggest challenges we have is the incredible strength of the Japanese passport, which means that these passport holders can freely travel to so many countries without visas or without any kind of restrictions on the activities that they can carry out. And this makes it very easy to travel, but it also makes it really easy for traffickers to move the women between the countries, especially if one country starts to pay a little bit more attention to the girls coming in. And of course, very difficult for immigration officers to then find the evidence of coercion. Also, something else I want to point out is that we're concerned about what we're observing with some of the major adult content platforms. So typically pornography websites, and Pornhub is one of the major ones in the world that everyone knows. And and Pornhub specifically, their annual reports say that Japanese is one of the most searched for categories of pornography. And we know that the hentai genre, which is also of Japanese origin, that has been the site's most searched term globally for many, many years consecutively. So if you allow me, Joey, maybe to give a very subjective opinion here. If you're a business owner and you want to sell a new product to someone, one of the ways that you can create demand is to have lots of TV ads or have lots of online ads where people are introduced to the product features. And over time, even if you didn't really have an interest in that specific product that they're trying to sell, they may wish to try it, right? Because it looks so great through the advertising. And that is how we create demand from a marketing point of view. And I'm not suggesting that the traffickers are behind all the adult videos. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am suggesting is that when there is an extremely high volume of virtual content in circulation, it is very possible that it will also fuel demand for the real thing. Right. And the concern here is that criminal actors can operate wherever there is demand and wherever there's an opportunity, and that's exactly what they're doing. So demands are changing, the destinations may change, but the underlying vulnerabilities often remain the same.
Right. Well, so we've had a lot of dark topic points here. So let me shift to something that's a little bit brighter, and that is the growing awareness that I'm seeing among the service providers internationally. 10 years ago, there was not a lot there for victims. But today, there are far more resources available, not just abroad, but like here locally in Japan.
Oh, absolutely. We've been speaking to some excellent human trafficking hotlines, different service providers, shelters, advocacy organizations, even some great discussions with law enforcement units in some of the destination countries that we mentioned earlier. And I'm just so encouraged that they are so well trained and how they can respond to this kind of exploitation. And people are often surprised to learn that there is some kind of support available, especially if you're overseas and you don't speak the language. And a person that feels trapped or unsafe, they're really not alone. There are professionals that are ready to listen, provide guidance, and connect them with the appropriate services. The challenge is for them to recognize that those services are available, to be connected. And I think that's where all of us play a role.
So what about the language issue? I imagine that these women who don't speak English, they're in an English-speaking country, and Japanese is not a globally recognized language. So how are these other organizations overcoming that barrier?
I think that partly through resources that are available in Japanese, but also these major hotlines, they're so well connected. So they use interpreter services. So they bring in a third person into the conversation if the girl makes the call, and she can communicate in Japanese, and once they've established what the needs are and understand the situation, they could also connect her to an organization in Japan that can take over from there and just have conversations in native tongue. And I think that's really what we are all working towards to make them aware and make that possible.
That's encouraging. That's really good. I'm excited about a new resource that is available for young women. It's a little business card-sized booklet that is a really awesome tool for women to try to recognize if they're being exploited. And it provides contact information for human trafficking hotlines in Japan, in the United States, and in Canada. It's a short, practical tool that anyone can use to raise awareness, especially if they hear that someone may be planning a trip overseas. These are not heavy, long read documents. They're very easy to digest. They're in Japanese,
exactly.
Right? And a woman who may not believe that she is being trafficked, who is sitting on an airplane for hours, may just open that booklet. And after reading through some of the content that's in there, she may begin to recognize some of those red flags as applying to her own life. So one of the most effective things, I think, when we're talking about women self-identifying as being trafficked is they have to come to that realization on their own. A lot of women do not want to be told that they're trafficked, but they will. If you plant that seed or give them these red flags, they may begin to connect those dots themselves. And that puts them in a much stronger position for pulling themselves out of that lifestyle.
Absolutely. And at the very least, it's a prevention resource. And prevention often looks so simple. It's a parent having a really open conversation with a child before they go overseas to study or work abroad. It could be a teacher or a university professor sharing a resource. It's a church displaying information, maybe on their website or where the youth find information about church activities. It could be a friend that is just checking in. You mentioned that if someone is going to travel. So all of these small actions just help to raise awareness. It makes it a mainstream discussion. And when they encounter that situation, they are just much more prepared.
Right. So let's remember again that anyone can be affected by this issue. There's one young woman in particular that comes to mind when we're talking about this stuff. Her high-ranking marks in STEM subjects did not exclude her from being exploited for prostitution.
Oh, I remember her, brilliant young girl.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, it's just a really strong reminder that we should not make assumptions about people. Her past and the weight that she carried created a vulnerability that traffickers specifically look for so that they can exploit. So for those who are listening today, here's a practical way to get involved. Order prevention resources. Our resources are free here at ZOE Japan. Share them with schools, churches, universities, as you mentioned, Honoree. They're travel size. They're easy to hand out. Even if you think that the person that you're talking to or handing these to is not at risk, they may come across someone during their travels that could benefit from that information. So I think what really is important here is getting the information out.
Fully agree. And I even want to encourage listeners, if you know of a young person that is going to travel to a country, maybe by themselves, and it's the first time for them to work or study abroad, they can even reach out to the ZOE Japan hotline and just say, hey, I am going to work overseas and I heard that there may be some risks, and just give me some tips, give me some suggestions on how I can stay safe. And we'd love to share that with them. We'd love to help them to stay safe. So anytime they can reach out in either Japanese or English, and we would be willing to support. And of course, awareness alone won't solve trafficking, but awareness creates opportunities for intervention, and that is really what we're looking for.
Yeah, I think that's key. Honoree, this has been great. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. This has been great.
And thank you to our listeners. To learn more about human trafficking and for other podcast episodes, please go to our website at gozoe.jp.
Please support ZOE Japan. With your help, we can reach every person and rescue every child.